Hello and welcome to this webinar. Today I'm going to go over BIM quantity takeoff and connecting the quantities to an Excel bill. First of all, I'll be taking you through creating a new project, so I'll give it a name, BIM webinar quantity takeoff in this case, and then I'll select whether I want to use SMM7 or NRM2, and finally whether I want to measure in metric or imperial. Since I live in London, I'll choose metric. Once the project's loaded up, you'll see on the left hand side we have all our building elements, columns, walls, beams and so on, and then our element list. This is where you create new elements. Now up top we have various sections. Since we will be working with BIM, we'll mostly be focused on the BIM model. However, if you want to focus on 2D to 3D, then you can head over to Identify or watch our other webinars on that. We work with both IFC and Revit. To work with IFC, you simply click Import IFC file, and it will be the same process for Revit, where you click Import Revit file. And of course, if you have changes in a model, so Revit changes, then do the same thing. Revit changes, bring it in, and I'll show you how. You do this. So choose your Revit model. I will be choosing the structural model in this example, and I'll take you through the process of quantifying it. So once the software realizes that yes, you're working with a Revit model, you bring it in, you wait for it to move to the next process, and you simply have to say what is your reference floor. So in this one it's entry level 1, click next to confirm, and now our approach is radically different to most methods available, where now we've extracted the data from the Revit file, categorized it, and what we're saying to the software is, in the Revit file, this over here is a rectangular beam. Is it seen as a beam in our software? Yes, it is. If it isn't, let's say if it was recognized as a column or some other entity, then you can just change it. It's usually not the case, but you have the option. Of course, you can change the material as well. So you can change the material from in situ concrete to precast concrete also. Doing so will affect the advanced measures which we'll be able to generate. So simply just repeat the process to all of the building elements. Just make sure what is being imported and how it's being perceived in our software, and then just confirm it. Next, you also have the option to say, I don't want the roof to be included. I only want certain floors. To be. I only want to quantify certain floors, or just bring them in, so you can just check or uncheck them here. One thing to mention here is when we bring in the model, then we are not just bringing the model. If, for instance, it's concrete, then what we are able to do is, for concrete, we add advanced measures such as concrete volume, rebar, formwork, overheight formwork, and so on. For steelwork, we add tonnages, volume. So these are some of the advanced measures which we add. I'll just show you what the structural model looks like now. Now that we have the structural model, it has been imported. What we can do is we can interrogate it further to show you. For instance, I've just zoned into the columns. You can see in this model there are two different types. So one's 450 by 750. We have our list of attributes down at the bottom here, where the steel ratio is what's used to calculate the weight of rebar, which you'll see later on. So if you know exactly what it is, you can change it from 150 to something else, and of course you can batch select all of them. So you can just be much more automated in this approach. So if I was to calculate this now, I can just select which floors I want to calculate, click OK, and now this is running past SMM7 rules. So all the SMM7 rules, it's measuring to them. If, for instance, I would like certain tweaks to be made, I've always got the flexibility to delve deeper and change them further. Of course, that's beyond the scope of this webinar, so I won't delve too deep, but there is a possibility for you to do that. Just very quickly to show you what quantities we have generated. So as you can see, for the columns, we have separated by floor, material, concrete grade, entity type, and so on. We can change the classification to either add or remove items and prioritize them further as well. So as you can see, if I wanted the name to take priority, then I would simply just check that, and now you know that everything's been split by name first, and those settings can be either imported or exported. You can see the subtotals of the project also, so you can just get a more finite detail as to where the quantities are coming from. Furthermore, we also have reverse check model, which I'll just show you shortly, but over here it's showing the subtotals of this 450 column. So now that I've reverse checked it, I get a list which I can work through. I can click on the element which I'm interested in, and it takes you directly to it. The element is highlighted in blue, so you know what it is that you are looking at, and the properties are displayed at the bottom as well. So if you want to make any changes or tweaks, you can do that. More on that later. Now that we know that yes, we've generated quantities, what next? Well, you can bring in your cost document or your Excel file, which can be anything. Here we try and identify the Excel, so you can say, yep, whether or not you're happy with the columns. So if you are, you can identify them. If, for instance, there is data in the column in the Excel file you don't need, you can just clear the field. So in this one, I'm just deselecting the quantities because I don't want it to come through. Now I'm able to identify the rows, fully identify. Now that I'm happy, we have a mini Excel within the software just to help you with the dragging and dropping of just saying, hey, there are certain quantities which I need. I'll just show you over here, and then like this you can build up your cost document. For instance, I'm in the column section, and what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to grab the total volume and just drop it on the columns. What you see is now we know that this item has been associated, just to make it simpler for you to see, okay, what have you associated, what you haven't, and just filter through it. So you can just do this with other building elements and then just work through it really. Just continue to do that. Another thing to note is if you use an item more than once, then what happens is it gets colorized differently, so it just changes to purple just to visualize that further. So what we can do now is now that we have some data, we can save this as a baseline to say, yes, this is my first revision, no changes have been made yet. However, if changes occur, how do I know? Well, this is the beauty of it. Once you've linked the quantities to a cost document, in this sense, the Excel file, then you have this 3-level check where you can go back and say, hey, this is, are there any anomalies? Yes, okay, this is where the quantities are coming from, and this is how much of it there is. So you can go to it. You can say, I want to know how many of these there are. Okay, brilliant. If, for instance, let's say there's a design revision that the radius is no longer 225 for all of the 450s, and it changes to something like 250, so the diameter is 500, then, oh, change the radius to 500, then what we'll see is we'll see how this impacts the quantities. But just for visualization, we can take this a step further just to colorize them differently as well. So when we have a look at the model, we'll know, yes, they have been altered, they have been changed, and then just rerun the quantities, and you'll be able to see how it impacts the baseline to see if there's any deviation. As you can see, originally my baseline was 121. It's now changed to 149.